The grease was still warm in the skillet, and she was already eating, standing up, alone, fork in one hand. No table set for 6, no reason to sit down, just something fast, something cheap, something that filled the quiet. Here are 30 vintage 10-minute dishes for seniors living alone. Milk toast was the meal your grandmother made when the world had worn her down. Warm milk poured over buttered toast, sometimes with sugar, sometimes with just salt, and the silence of an empty kitchen. The dish first appeared in American cookbooks around 1840, and by 1896, Fanny Farmer had it listed in the Boston Cooking School cookbook under Feeding the Sick. But it was never just for the sick. It was for the tired, the lonely, the ones who didn't have the energy to cook a real supper but still needed something warm before bed. MFK Fisher called it a warm, mild, soothing thing, full of innocent strength. You tore the bread by hand. You heated the milk until it barely steamed. You sat in a kitchen that used to hold a whole family and ate something that cost almost nothing and somehow still felt like enough. Cinnamon sugar toast required nothing but bread, butter, a spoonful of sugar, and a shake of cinnamon. Yet the old cooks made it like it mattered. The secret was the broiler. Anyone could sprinkle sugar on buttered toast, but only the ones who knew slid it under the flame until the sugar bubbled and cracked into a thin, caramelized shell. You had maybe 30 seconds between perfect and ruined. During the Depression, when a loaf of white bread cost a nickel and cinnamon was one of the few spices most kitchens kept, this was the cheapest treat a child could hope for. By the 1960s, it was the after-school snack in nearly every American home, the smell of burnt sugar and warm cinnamon hitting you before you even dropped your school bag. For the seniors who live alone now, that taste is a direct line back to a kitchen counter they once stood at, waiting. The person who handed them that plate is gone. The cinnamon is still in the cabinet. Sardines on crackers turned a tin that cost less than a quarter into a meal that could carry you through the afternoon. During the 30s and 40s, canned sardines were among the cheapest protein in the country. Shelf-stable, no cooking required, ready the moment you peeled back the lid with that little key. The joy of cooking included sardine toast recipes by 1943, treating them not as a last resort but as a proper, quick supper. You laid them across saltines or Ritz crackers, maybe with a squeeze of lemon or a dot of mustard. The old ones never rinsed them. That was how you could tell someone who actually ate sardines from someone who was only pretending. After the war, when fresh meat became affordable again, sardines quietly slid from necessity to eccentricity. But in apartments across the country, widows and widowers still open that same flat tin for supper, standing at the counter with a sleeve of crackers, eating the way they always have. Egg in a hole went by a dozen names depending on who raised you. Egg in a basket, egg in a frame, one-eyed Sam, and every family swore their name was the only right one. You pressed a drinking glass into the center of a slice of bread, dropped it into a buttered skillet, and cracked an egg right into the hole. The concept appeared in American cookbooks in the late 1800s, and Italian immigrants brought their own version, uova fritte nel pane, through Ellis Island around the same time. The trick your grandfather knew, the part nobody writes down, was frying that little bread circle alongside the toast in the same pan, using it to soak up the runny yolk like an edible spoon. 5 minutes, 1 egg, 1 slice of bread, 1 pat of butter. For a senior eating alone, it remains one of the most satisfying meals a single skillet and a quiet morning can produce. If a single fried egg felt like enough, imagine what happened when you had a few hard-boiled ones left over from Easter. Creamed eggs on toast turned yesterday's extras into tonight's real supper. Chopped eggs folded into a simple white sauce, spooned over bread. Fanny Farmer published a version called Eggs a la Goldenrod in 1896, where you separated yolk from white, stirred the whites into bechamel, and grated the yolk over the top like dust from a goldenrod flour. That golden crumble is where the name came from. Through the 30s and 40s, this became the standard day-after-Easter meal in households that couldn't afford to waste a single egg. The preparation took 8 minutes. Melt butter, stir in flour, add milk, season, fold in the eggs. 1 saucepan and 1 piece of toast. For the women who made this alone in their later years, it was never Easter anymore. It was just Tuesday. But the taste still carried something from a kitchen table that used to be crowded. The tomato sandwich needed exactly 3 things: soft white bread, mayonnaise, and a tomato so ripe the juice ran down your wrist the moment you sliced it. In the South, where summer gardens overflowed from June through September, this wasn't a side dish or a snack, it was lunch. Harriet Ross Colquitt documented it in the Savannah Cookbook in 1933, though families had been making it for generations before anyone thought to write it down. The rules were unwritten, but firm. Duke's mayonnaise if you were from the Carolinas, Hellman's if you were from anywhere else. Tomato at room temperature, never refrigerated, because cold kills the flavor. Salted heavier than you'd think. The salt draws out the juice, and the juice is the whole point. You ate it standing at the sink or out on the porch, and you didn't bother with a plate. A tomato sandwich in August cost next to nothing and tasted like the entire summer had been building toward that single bite. Cornbread crumbled into a glass of cold buttermilk was a supper most people under 50 have never heard of, but anyone raised in the rural South or Appalachia knows it the way you know your own name. You took a chunk of leftover cornbread, cold from this morning or the night before, broke it into a tall glass, poured buttermilk over it until it was swimming, and ate it with a long spoon while standing at the counter. During the Depression, when cornmeal cost a few cents a bag and buttermilk stayed cool in the creek without refrigeration, this was what families ate when nothing else was left. They called regular milk sweet milk to tell it apart from the tangy, thick stuff that lasted longer in the heat. The taste was sour and crumbly and sharp, and if you grew up eating it, nothing on this earth can stand in for that exact combination. Your grandmother never measured the buttermilk. She knew the right amount by the weight of the glass in her hand. Welsh rarebit turned bread and cheese into something that almost passed for a real dinner, and for decades it rescued Americans who opened the refrigerator and found close to nothing. The dish traces to Hannah Glass's The Art of Cookery in 1747, where it appeared as Welsh rabbit, the dark joke being that families too poor for actual rabbit ate melted cheese instead. By the 1940s, it was a lunch counter fixture. Cheddar melted with a splash of ale, dry mustard, a few drops of Worcestershire, poured thick over toast. Stouffer's later sold a frozen version that moved millions of units, and whole generations grew up knowing that orange sauce as the weeknight rescue. 1 saucepan, 1 burner, whatever cheese was on hand, and under 10 minutes from a cold kitchen to a full plate. For a widower who never learned more than a handful of dishes, rarebit was a meal that felt respectable, warm, filling, and decent enough to sit down for, even when only 1 chair was pulled from the table. She made herself a fried egg sandwich almost every night after he died. Not because she loved them, though she did, but because it was the one meal she could make without thinking. Bread in the toaster, butter in the skillet, egg cracked one-handed the way she'd done it 10,000 times before. In the 1940s, when eggs ran 25 cents a dozen, a fried egg sandwich was the cheapest hot supper in the country. Every diner counter served one. Every mother knew how her family liked their yolks, broken flat or left soft enough to run through the bread. The whole thing took under 5 minutes and needed nothing that wasn't already in the kitchen. For seniors living alone, the fried egg sandwich survives not because it's exciting, but because it's steady. The same pan, the same quiet pop of egg hitting hot butter, night after night, in a kitchen that used to sound completely different. Canned salmon patties turned a 79-cent tin into something that smelled like a real kitchen was operating again. You drained the salmon, picked out the soft bones, though plenty of old cooks left them in, knowing they were pure calcium, mashed it with a fork, mixed in a beaten egg, a handful of cracker crumbs, and diced onion, then shaped them into patties and fried them in bacon grease until the edges went dark and crisp. 8 minutes from tin to plate. During the Depression and the war, canned pink salmon was one of the most reliable stored proteins a household could keep, and salmon patties became the Friday night supper in Catholic homes across the Midwest and South. No meat on Fridays, but fish was always fine. By the 1950s, mothers made these without looking at a recipe because the recipe was already in their hands. The smell of salmon frying in a cast-iron skillet still brings certain people straight to a kitchen that no longer exists, with a woman standing at the stove who stopped answering a long time ago. While Welsh rarebit called for real cheese and sometimes ale, the version that actually fed most American kitchens was simpler and stranger: tomato rarebit, made from a can of Campbell's tomato soup, a splash of milk, shredded American cheese, dry mustard, and 2 beaten eggs. Everything went into one saucepan over low heat and got stirred until the cheese melted and the whole thing thickened into a sauce. Spooned over crackers or toast, it was a full supper. The Buffalo Evening News cookbook carried a version as early as 1925, and by the 40s the dish had picked up nicknames: Blushing Bunny, Pink Bunny. That made it sound playful rather than desperate. But that's what it was: 5 pantry ingredients, 5 minutes, and a meal that tasted far richer than it had any business tasting. The soup brought tang, the cheese brought weight, and the eggs turned it creamy. It slipped away when people stopped cooking with Campbell's and started just eating it from the can. Hot water cornbread came from the oldest kitchens in America, Native American and African American homes, where cornmeal, salt, and water were sometimes everything a family had to work with. You poured boiling water over cornmeal and a pinch of salt, stirred until it formed a soft dough, shaped it into small patties with wet hands, and dropped them into a skillet of hot grease. The outside crisped golden in about 3 minutes per side. The inside stayed creamy and dense, almost like warm porridge. During the Depression, when a bag of cornmeal cost a few cents and could stretch for weeks, this was the dish that stood between hunger and holding on. No egg, no milk, no flour, just corn and water and fire. Some families crumbled it into a bowl of cold milk for supper. Others ate it alongside whatever greens they could pull from the yard. The women who made it never once measured the water. They poured until the dough felt right, and that feel lived nowhere but in their hands. Stewed tomatoes on toast could be on the table before the kitchen even warmed up. You opened a can, poured the tomatoes into a saucepan with a knob of butter and a pinch of sugar to cut the acid, heated them until they bubbled, then spooned the whole thing over a piece of toast and let the bread soak it up. In Appalachian and Midwestern homes through the 1930s and 40s, this was a complete meal. Not a side, not a starter, but supper. Some added torn pieces of bread directly into the pot and stirred until everything became a thick, sweet, tangy mush that you ate with a spoon. The entire process took maybe 4 minutes from can to plate. It cost almost nothing. It filled you up enough to sleep. And for a woman eating alone in a kitchen that once fed a household, there was something honest about it. No pretense, no performance, just a hot bowl of something red and soft and familiar. Braunschweiger on crackers was the lunch that lived in every Midwestern refrigerator for 40 years and then quietly disappeared. The German liverwurst, smooth, spreadable, dark as wet clay, came wrapped in a plastic casing you peeled back like a banana. You spread it on Ritz or saltines with a butter knife, maybe added a thin slice of onion or a line of yellow mustard. And that was lunch. In the 20s and 30s, when German immigrant communities still dominated whole neighborhoods in Milwaukee, Cincinnati, and St. Louis, Braunschweiger was as common as peanut butter. It was cheap protein that kept for weeks in the icebox. Kids carried it in lunchboxes next to an apple and never thought twice. When fresh deli meats became affordable in the 60s, the spread lost its place. The taste was too strong, too particular, too tied to a generation that was already getting old. If you can still find it in the supermarket, it's usually on the bottom shelf, where the things nobody buys anymore go to wait. And if Braunschweiger was too rich for the pantry, there was always sugar bread, the meal that had no business being called a meal at all. A slice of white bread, a smear of butter if you had it, a heavy shake of white sugar on top. That was it. During the Depression, when sugar cost 4 cents a pound and bread was a nickel a loaf, sugar bread was what mothers gave children who said they were still hungry after supper was gone. It wasn't nutrition, it was a negotiation. Some families skipped the butter entirely, just bread and sugar, folded in half so the crystals wouldn't fall. The strange thing is that people remember it with love, not bitterness. It tasted sweet. It came from someone who was trying. And when you're 8 years old and your mother hands you something that sparkles, you don't ask what it cost her to have nothing better to offer. You just eat it and feel lucky. Potato soup with an egg dropped in was the kind of meal that doesn't show up in cookbooks because nobody thought it was worth writing down. You peeled 2 or 3 potatoes, cut them small, boiled them in salted water until soft, then cracked an egg straight into the pot and stirred until it shredded into ribbons through the broth. A little pepper, maybe a slice of cheese melted on top if there was cheese. The Most for Your Money cookbook, published in 1938, included versions of this kind of bare-bones soup, meals designed for families counting every cent. The whole thing took about 10 minutes and dirtied 1 pot. It fed 1 person completely. It was warm and thick enough to feel real. No one served this at a dinner party or brought it to a church social. This was what you made at the end of the month, alone, standing at the stove in a kitchen where the only sound was the water coming to a boil. Creamed corn on toast was one of those meals that sounds wrong until you've had it handed to you by someone who grew up eating it every week. You opened a can of creamed corn, Del Monte, Green Giant, whatever was on sale, heated it in a saucepan until it steamed, and poured it over a piece of buttered toast. The corn soaked into the bread, and the whole thing became soft and sweet and thick, somewhere between a side dish and a porridge. Through the 40s and 50s, it was a cafeteria staple and a weeknight rescue in homes where a can of corn and a loaf of bread were always on the shelf. No one photographed it, no one bragged about it, but millions of Americans ate it for supper at least once a week, especially the ones cooking alone, because 1 can of creamed corn was exactly the right amount for 1 person, and that math mattered when nobody else was coming to the table. Peanut butter and crackers with a drizzle of honey required no stove, no pan, no cleanup, and no skill. Just a knife, a sleeve of saltines, and 2 jars that lived in every American pantry for the better part of a century. Peanut butter became a true household staple after George Washington Carver's work popularized the peanut in the early 1900s. And when Nabisco introduced Ritz crackers in 1934, marketing them as an affordable luxury during the Depression, the combination locked into place. You spread peanut butter on a cracker, drizzled honey across the top, and stacked them on a plate. No cooking, no waiting. A full serving of protein, fat, and sugar in under 2 minutes. For seniors living alone, especially those whose hands shake too much for stovetop cooking or whose appetites have gone quiet, this remains one of the few meals that asks nothing of you except to open the jar. Beans and rice fed more American families through more hard decades than almost any other single dish, and in New Orleans it was never a sign of poverty. It was Monday. Red beans simmered with a ham bone while the laundry boiled in the yard, and by evening the pot was thick and smoky and ready to pour over a mound of white rice. Francis Moore Lappé confirmed in Diet for a Small Planet in 1971 what poor families had always known by instinct. Rice and beans together form a complete protein, the same as meat. The ingredients cost pennies. The leftovers kept for days. 1 pot, 1 burner, enough for a week of solitary suppers reheated in a kitchen where the table only needs 1 placemat now. For the seniors who still make a pot on Monday the way their mothers did, the dish carries more than nutrition. It carries the sound of a house that used to be full. If beans and rice was Monday, gravy bread was every other night when the money ran out before the week did. You saved bacon drippings or pan grease in a tin can by the stove. Every kitchen had one. Then spooned some into a hot skillet, stirred in a few tablespoons of flour until it browned, and added milk or water slowly until it thickened into a pale, thick gravy. Poured over bread or biscuits, it was the poor man's supper across the South and Appalachia from the Depression through the 1960s. There was no protein. There was no vegetable. There was just fat and flour and starch, and the stubborn insistence that something hot on the table was better than nothing at all. The women who made this didn't call it gravy bread, they just called it supper, and their grandchildren, eating alone now in apartments far from those kitchens, sometimes make it still, not because they have to, but because the taste is the closest they can get to her. Deviled ham came in a small tin with a red devil on the label, and it lasted in the pantry for years, which was the entire point. Underwood deviled ham has been in production since 1868, making it the oldest branded food product still sold in America. The spread inside was finely ground ham mixed with spices, smooth enough to knife across a cracker or a piece of toast, salty and dense and oddly satisfying for something that looked like cat food. Through the 20s, 30s, and 40s, it was the thing you reached for when the refrigerator was bare. No cooking, no thawing, no effort beyond pulling the tab. Housewives used it to stuff celery for bridge parties. Widowers used it to make supper disappear in 3 minutes flat. The tin was small enough for one sitting, cheap enough to stock 5 at a time, and reliable in the way that only canned things can be. Always the same taste, no matter how much everything else had changed. Creamed chipped beef on toast carried a nickname so vulgar the Army printed it as SOS and left the rest to the imagination. The dish entered the manual for Army cooks in 1910. Thin-sliced dried beef stirred into a cream sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, spooned over toast. Soldiers ate it through both world wars, cursing every bite while scraping the plate clean. The ingredients were all shelf-stable. The beef was salted and dried, the flour and powdered milk traveled anywhere. And the preparation took under 10 minutes with one saucepan and one burner. When those soldiers came home, they brought the recipe with them, and it became a weeknight staple through the 50s. In Pennsylvania Dutch country, they still call it frizzled beef. The taste was salty, creamy, heavy, the kind of meal that sat in your stomach and told you the day was done. Somewhere, a veteran in his 80s is making it tonight in a kitchen that hasn't changed since his wife decorated it in 1974. Cottage cheese with canned fruit was the lunch that every woman over 70 remembers from the diner counter. A scoop of breakstones on a lettuce leaf, a canned peach half turned upside down beside it, maybe a pineapple ring if the waitress liked you. Through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, this was the ladies' lunch special at diners and department store cafeterias from coast to coast. No cooking, no heat, just cold protein and sweet fruit on a plate that looked like someone had thought about presentation. It cost 35 cents and came with a packet of Melba toast. For women who'd spent decades feeding families and suddenly found themselves eating alone, cottage cheese and fruit became the meal they could assemble without turning on a single burner. Open the container, open the can, put it on a plate. It looked like a meal. It felt like someone had made something. And on the days when the apartment was too quiet, even that small act of arrangement was enough to keep the routine from falling apart entirely. Cornbread and milk was a different animal from cornbread and buttermilk, sweeter, softer, gentler, and almost always eaten at the end of the day. You crumbled a square of leftover sweet cornbread into a bowl, poured cold whole milk over it until the bread went soft, and ate it with a spoon while sitting in front of the television. In Southern and Midwestern households through the 50s and 60s, this was the standard evening meal for anyone who didn't feel like cooking, which often meant the person who'd cooked for everyone else all day. One woman described it as her Wheel of Fortune supper. She'd make it during the opening credits and finish before the first puzzle was solved. The cornbread soaked up the milk and turned into something halfway between a dessert and a cereal, and the sweetness was just enough to feel like a small kindness at the end of a long day. Nobody talks about cornbread and milk anymore, but the people who ate it alone are still here. Before the cornbread, before the toast, before any of it, there were just crackers and milk. Saltine crackers crushed into a bowl of cold milk, sometimes with a spoonful of sugar, sometimes with nothing at all. During the Depression, this was supper for millions of children whose families had run out of everything else. It was the precursor to breakfast cereal. Starch and dairy in a bowl, eaten with a spoon, filling enough to quiet a stomach, and bland enough to put a child to sleep. The crackers went soft in about 30 seconds. The milk turned slightly salty from the crackers dissolving. The whole thing cost less than a nickel. There was no recipe because there was nothing to get wrong. You broke what you had into a bowl and poured what was left over it. For the seniors who remember this as the last meal of their childhood, the one before the lights went out in a house with too many people and not enough food, the taste is not nostalgia. It is survival wearing a paper-thin disguise. Toast with bacon grease was what you ate when there was no butter left and no money to buy more. You pulled the tin can from beside the stove, the one that caught every drop of rendered fat from every piece of bacon, every pork chop, every sausage patty, and spread a spoonful across a warm slice of bread the way you'd spread butter, except it tasted like smoke and salt and everything the family had cooked that week. In the 30s and 40s, that can of grease was more valuable than almost anything else in the kitchen. Throwing away fat was unthinkable. It was flavor. It was calories. It was the difference between a meal and just bread. Some mornings it was the only thing between a child and school on an empty stomach. The generation that saved bacon grease is almost gone now. Their grandchildren throw it away without thinking. But somewhere tonight, in a small kitchen with one chair at the table, an old woman is spreading it on toast, not because she has to, but because it still tastes like home. One egg cake in a skillet was the Depression-era answer to the question every tired cook eventually asks. Can I make something sweet without making a production out of it? You mixed flour, sugar, baking powder, a splash of milk, and one egg in a bowl, poured the batter into a greased cast-iron skillet, and cooked it on the stovetop over low heat with a lid on top. No oven needed. 8 minutes, and you had a small, dense, warm cake. Golden on the bottom, soft in the middle, just sweet enough to count as dessert. The recipe circulated through church cookbooks and hand-copied recipe cards through the 30s and 40s, always under different names: skillet cake, stovetop cake, sad cake, in some parts of Appalachia, where sad meant dense and moist. It made exactly enough for one or two people. For a woman living alone who wanted something sweet after supper but couldn't justify heating the oven for a single slice, the skillet cake was a private kindness, small, warm, and made just for her. Coffee soup sounds like a joke until you learn that millions of Americans ate it for breakfast and nobody was laughing. You took leftover coffee from the morning pot, cold, bitter, yesterday's, poured it into a bowl, tore stale bread into it, added milk and sugar, and stirred until the bread went soft. That was breakfast. During the Depression, it was called wet toast in some parts of the country, and it used up two things no frugal household could afford to throw away: old bread and old coffee. The Amish still make a version of it today. In Italian immigrant homes, it went by caffè latte with stale bread, and nobody was embarrassed by it because everybody ate the same thing. The beauty of coffee soup, if you can call it beauty, was that it asked for nothing fresh, nothing expensive, nothing that required a trip to the store. Just the dregs, just the scraps, just whatever was already sitting on the counter from the day before, repurposed into one more meal by hands that refused to let anything go to waste. A bowl of oatmeal with butter and salt, never sugar, not in certain households, was the breakfast that held together more American mornings than almost any other single food. Quaker Oats had been selling rolled oats since 1877, and by the Depression it was the cheapest hot breakfast in the country. A few cents per serving, ready in 5 minutes, filling enough to carry a man through a morning of physical labor. The secret that divided families was the finish. Some added brown sugar or maple syrup. But in parts of New England and the upper Midwest, the only acceptable way to eat oatmeal was with a pat of butter melting in the center and a heavy pinch of salt. Nothing sweet, nothing fancy, just the rich, savory warmth of grain and fat. You stirred the butter in slowly and watched it turn the surface golden. For the seniors who still make this every morning alone, the ritual hasn't changed in 70 years. Same pot, same bowl, same slow stir. The kitchen is just quieter now. Bread and milk was the oldest supper in America. Torn bread in a bowl of warm milk, sometimes with a grating of nutmeg, sometimes with a spoonful of sugar, sometimes with nothing but the silence of eating the last thing the kitchen could offer. It predates every recipe in this list. Cookbooks from the 1800s described it as a standard evening meal for children, the elderly, and the grieving. Anyone too tired or too sad to cook. The bread went soft in the warm milk and became something you didn't chew so much as swallow, and the warmth settled in your chest the way a hand on your shoulder might. It was the meal grandmothers made for themselves after the house emptied out, after the children moved away, after the husband passed, after the holiday table shrank from 12 chairs to 4 to 1. No recipe, no technique, just bread and milk and a kitchen so quiet you could hear the clock on the wall. That was supper. That was enough. Corn fritters with maple drizzle were pure Southern comfort, a 10-minute bridge between hunger and happiness. Corn, fresh or canned, was folded into a light batter of flour, egg, and milk, then dropped into a hot cast-iron skillet where it sizzled and rose into golden pillows. The outside crisped, the inside stayed soft, catching the faint sweetness of the corn. When drizzled with maple syrup, it became something transcendent. Sweet, savory, and nostalgic all at once. The joy of cooking called them a luncheon for all hours, and they lived up to that promise. They appeared at kitchen tables, church picnics, and roadside stands, eaten hot from paper towels while steam still curled into the air. Some cooks added green onion or bacon, others kept them plain, letting simplicity shine. Corn fritters with maple drizzle captured the rhythm of everyday cooking, fast, generous, and full of soul. They were food made to be shared, to be gone too soon. Hot spiced fruit compote was the warm side dish that grandmothers assembled from canned fruits transformed by butter, brown sugar, and Christmas spices into something that tasted homemade and special. Canned peach halves, pear halves, pineapple rings, and maraschino cherries were drained and arranged in baking dishes, then dotted with butter and sprinkled with brown sugar, cinnamon, and a pinch of nutmeg. 10 minutes under the broiler or in a hot oven caramelized the sugar into a glossy glaze while warming the fruits through. The compote was served hot alongside ham or turkey, its sweetness complementing savory meats while its warmth contrasted with cold salads and relishes. Grandmothers who wanted extra richness added a splash of rum or brandy before baking, the alcohol burning off while leaving behind its warm flavor. Hot spiced fruit compote proved that canned goods, when treated with creativity and care, could become memorable holiday dishes. Stewed tomatoes on toast brought garden flavor to supper tables using canned tomatoes that cost pennies and required almost no preparation. Seniors who had canned their own tomatoes during summer or purchased store brands during lean times understood this humble ingredient's versatility. The tomatoes were heated in a small saucepan with butter, salt, sugar, and sometimes torn bread pieces that thickened the liquid into something approaching sauce. This warm mixture was spooned over buttered toast that soaked up the juices gratefully. The combination provided vitamins, fiber, and comfort of something warm and savory. Some seniors added black pepper or Worcestershire sauce to deepen flavors. Others kept things simple, letting tomatoes speak for themselves. The dish appeared on tables across America during decades when making do meant making delicious from almost nothing. Stewed tomatoes on toast proved that a can of tomatoes and bread slice could become something worth sitting down to eat properly. Egg nests were breakfast theater in 10 minutes flat. Egg whites were whipped into glossy clouds, shaped into little nests, and baked just long enough to firm before the yolks were added back in. The result was a dish that looked far fancier than it was, light, airy, and golden at the center. The joy of cooking described it as a dainty breakfast, perfect for brunches or special mornings. Housewives loved it because it turned a single egg into something spectacular. The contrast between the soft yolk and crisp-edged white made every bite feel delicate. Served with buttered toast or a slice of ham, it looked like something straight from a hotel breakfast tray. Children watched in awe as the nests puffed up in the oven. It was fast, pretty, and impossibly charming, the kind of forgotten magic that made morning feel like an occasion. Creamed pearl onions brought old-world elegance to American Christmas tables through a preparation so simple it bordered on effortless yet tasted utterly luxurious. Grandmothers relied on jars of pre-peeled pearl onions that eliminated the tedious work of blanching and skinning dozens of tiny bulbs by hand. The onions were drained and warmed in a quick cream sauce made from butter, flour, and milk whisked together until smooth and thickened. a pinch of nutmeg, the secret ingredient that distinguished good creamed onions from ordinary, added warmth without announcing its presence. The finished dish was silky and mild, the sweet onions suspended in sauce that coated each one in creamy richness. Children who found raw onions too sharp often discovered they loved these gentle, butter-soft morsels swimming in their mild sauce. Creamed pearl onions represented the quiet sophistication of mid-century holiday cooking, where simplicity and convenience met elegance on every table. Toast with bacon drippings carried the rich memory of breakfast into evening meals, using saved fat that thrifty households never discarded. During the 1940s through 70s, seniors understood that bacon grease collected in jars beside the stove was liquid gold for flavoring and spreading. A slice of bread was toasted until golden, then spread while warm with a thin layer of cooled drippings seasoned with salt from countless previous cookings. The fat melted slightly into warm bread, creating savory richness that satisfied hunger and stretched resources. Some seniors sprinkled their dripping toast with black pepper or topped it with tomato slices when gardens were producing. The flavor was deeply porky, slightly smoky, and wholly comforting to those who remembered when nothing edible was ever thrown away. This single slice often served as complete supper when appetites were small. Toast with bacon drippings represented waste-nothing kitchens where every ingredient served multiple purposes. Shrimp wiggle was one of those mid-century wonders that sounded playful but tasted like pure indulgence. Canned shrimp were folded into a quick cream sauce made with milk, butter, and flour, then brightened with a handful of green peas. It was served bubbling hot over saltine crackers or toast, ready in 10 minutes and perfect for company. The joy of cooking presented it as a pantry meal, proof that elegance could live in a can. The name alone made people smile, a hint that mealtime could still be fun even when rushed. The sauce shimmered pale pink, the shrimp tender and mild. It was a dish that combined thrift with theater, turning modest ingredients into something you would never call ordinary. The moment you broke through the creamy layer with your fork, steam carried the scent of butter and the sea. It was quick cooking at its finest, cheerful, comforting, and quietly clever. Quick corn relish brought tangy sweetness and crunch to holiday tables through a recipe that required nothing more than opening jars and stirring ingredients together. Grandmothers combined canned corn with diced pimientos, chopped green peppers, minced onion, and a simple dressing of vinegar, sugar, and celery seed. The relish came together in minutes, but tasted like something that had simmered and developed flavors for hours. Its bright yellow color studded with red and green made it look festive without any special effort, while its sweet, sour flavor complemented everything from turkey to ham to roast beef. Some families served corn relish as a side dish in small bowls, while others spooned it directly onto meat as a condiment. The recipe traveled well, making it perfect for potlucks and family gatherings where everyone brought a dish to share. Quick corn relish embodied the practical wisdom of grandmothers who knew that impressive results didn't require impressive effort. Cottage cheese and canned fruit became staple supper for seniors who needed protein without cooking effort and welcomed sweetness without dessert guilt. This combination required nothing more than spooning cottage cheese onto a plate and arranging canned peach halves, pear slices, or fruit cocktail alongside. The curds provided protein and calcium, while fruit offered vitamins and comfort of something sweet. During the 1950s and 60s, this was considered health food, recommended by doctors for patients needing gentle nourishment. The cottage cheese came in different curd sizes according to preference, and canned fruit ranged from budget brands to premium varieties. Some seniors added cinnamon or honey when company feelings struck. The cost remained minimal, since both ingredients kept well and stretched across multiple meals. Cottage cheese and canned fruit represented the intersection of economy and nutrition that practical seniors navigated daily, providing satisfaction without demanding time or energy. Cottage cheese pancakes were the forgotten fitness favorite of the 1970s. High in protein, light in texture, and ready in minutes. Cottage cheese, eggs, and a spoonful of flour made the batter. A hot pan did the rest. They cooked fast, puffing slightly around the edges, golden on both sides. The joy of cooking promoted them as part of a modern health breakfast, long before protein was a buzzword. Their flavor was mild but rich, tangy from the cheese and soft like soufflé inside. Served with fruit, honey, or jam, they felt both wholesome and indulgent. They became a favorite of busy parents and early risers who wanted real food without the fuss. Each pancake was proof that nourishment could be effortless. The smell of them frying, warm, milky, slightly sweet, could make any morning softer. Today, few remember how simple they were to make, but once, they were the breakfast that promised a better day. Harvard beets transformed the humble root vegetable into a glistening ruby red side dish that added color and sophistication to holiday spreads in mere minutes. Grandmothers kept canned beets in their pantries year-round, but brought them out especially at Christmas when their deep crimson color complemented the seasonal table. The sauce came together quickly: sugar, cornstarch, and vinegar whisked in a saucepan until thickened. Then the drained beets were stirred in to coat. The balance of sweet and tangy created a flavor that even beet skeptics could appreciate, the vinegar cutting through richness while sugar smoothed any earthy edges. A pat of butter stirred in at the end added gloss and richness that made the dish look like it required far more effort than it actually did. Harvard beets held well in warming dishes, making them ideal for buffet-style holiday meals where timing was unpredictable. The recipe appeared in community cookbooks across America, each version slightly different but all achievable in under 10 minutes. Sardines on crackers represented pantry cooking at its most practical, requiring nothing more than opening a tin and arranging contents on whatever crackers were at hand. For seniors living alone during the 1960s and 70s, this combination offered complete protein and essential oils without any cooking whatsoever. The tiny fish came packed in oil, water, or mustard sauce depending on preference, and a single tin stretched across 2 meals when appetite was small. Saltine crackers were the traditional base, their neutral flavor providing contrast to the rich, briny fish. Some seniors added lemon juice or hot sauce to brighten flavors. Others mashed the sardines with a fork, creating a spread that distributed more evenly. The entire meal cost pennies and provided nutrients doctors recommended for aging bodies. Sardines on crackers were consumed at kitchen tables by people who understood that dignity in dining came from adequacy, not extravagance. Creamed mushrooms on crackers was the kind of dish that came together faster than guests could arrive, the perfect mix of grace and resourcefulness. A few spoonfuls of butter melted in a pan, a dusting of flour turned it thick, and milk smoothed it into something velvety. Sliced mushrooms followed, softening as they released their earthy aroma. The sauce simmered just long enough to turn glossy before being spooned over crisp crackers or buttered toast. In the 1940s and 1950s, this was elegant entertaining, simple ingredients dressed in charm. The joy of cooking called it a supper in miniature, perfect for evenings when friends dropped by unannounced. Housewives loved it because it looked refined yet cost little, using what was already in the pantry. The flavor balanced richness and simplicity, each bite creamy with a hint of woodland flavor. Served with martinis or lemonade, it fit every occasion. Creamed mushrooms on crackers reminded cooks that true hospitality was never about extravagance. It was about warmth, speed, and heart. Pickled watermelon rind appeared in cut glass dishes at Southern Christmas tables, a sweet tart condiment that grandmothers put up in summer, but could also make quickly from store-bought jars enhanced with extra spices. Those who bought prepared rinds would simmer them briefly with additional cinnamon sticks, whole cloves, and a splash of vinegar to make them taste homemade. The translucent pale green pieces glistened like jewels, their texture crisp tender, and their flavor an unexpected combination of sweetness and pickle tang. Grandmothers served them alongside ham and turkey as a palate cleanser, their brightness cutting through rich meats and heavy gravies. The rinds connected Christmas tables to summer gardens and the waste-nothing philosophy that defined earlier generations. Even families who hadn't grown their own watermelons appreciated this old-fashioned condiment that seemed fancy but cost very little. Pickled watermelon rind proved that resourcefulness and flavor could coexist beautifully on holiday tables. Soft-boiled eggs with toast soldiers turned a simple egg into an interactive meal that brought small pleasure to solitary dining. Seniors who grew up with this British-influenced tradition continued preparing it well into later years, finding comfort in the familiar ritual. The egg was lowered gently into boiling water and cooked for exactly 3 to 4 minutes, producing set white and gloriously runny yolk. Meanwhile, toast was prepared and cut into narrow strips called soldiers, ready for dipping. The egg sat in a small cup, its top carefully removed to reveal golden liquid within. Each toast soldier was dipped into the yolk, emerging coated in rich goodness that made plain bread taste extraordinary. The meal cost almost nothing yet felt ceremonial, requiring attention that gave structure to evenings that might otherwise blur together. For seniors eating alone, the process of dipping and eating provided small entertainment alongside nourishment. Ham and pineapple foldovers were the decade's love letter to sweet and savory living. Thin slices of ham were topped with pineapple rings, brushed with mustard, and broiled on bread or biscuit halves until the edges crisped. The result was warm, tangy, and quick, a meal fit for both lunch and company. The Joy of Cooking listed it as a 10-minute sandwich, perfect for unexpected guests or late-night suppers. It was food that wore a smile, bright, colorful, unapologetically mid-century. The pineapple's sweetness met the salty ham in perfect balance, every bite delivering nostalgia in flavor form. These sandwiches sat proudly on holiday tables and weekday trays alike, their simplicity making them timeless. A sprinkle of grated cheese on top made them even better, melting into golden bubbles. It was fast food before the term existed, homemade and proud. Each foldover told the story of an era that loved flair without the wait. Glazed carrots became holiday fare when grandmothers transformed simple canned or frozen carrots with butter, brown sugar, and a splash of orange juice in just minutes on the stovetop. The carrots went into a skillet with butter that melted and foamed before brown sugar was sprinkled over, creating a syrup that clung to each piece as it reduced. Orange juice added brightness that balanced the sweetness, while a pinch of salt brought all the flavors into focus. The finished carrots glistened like amber jewels, their surfaces lacquered with caramelized glaze that made them irresistible to children and adults alike. Some grandmothers added a handful of raisins or a sprinkle of cinnamon for extra warmth, while others kept the recipe pure and simple. Glazed carrots could hold in a warm oven for extended periods without losing their appeal, making them perfect for unpredictable holiday timing. The dish proved that even the most humble vegetable could become something special with the right treatment. Milk toast was the quiet companion of countless evenings spent alone, a dish so simple it seemed too humble to call dinner. Yet for seniors watching every penny during the 1950s and 60s, this warm bowl delivered exactly what tired bodies needed. Stale bread was never wasted in those kitchens where thrift meant survival. Slices were toasted lightly, placed in a shallow bowl, and covered with warm milk heated with butter and a pinch of salt. The bread softened into something between solid and liquid, easy to eat for those with dental troubles or diminished appetites. Some added sugar or cinnamon when sweetness was needed. The cost was negligible since milk and bread were pantry constants, and preparation took barely 5 minutes. Milk toast carried memories of childhood sickbeds and mothers tending fevered children. For seniors eating alone, this bowl meant warmth without fuss and nourishment without pretense. Baked apples with cinnamon sugar were the heartwarming dessert that proved simplicity never went out of style, a 10-minute wonder that felt like hours of care. Core the apples, fill the hollow with brown sugar, cinnamon, and a pat of butter, then bake until the skin turned glossy and the filling bubbled over like molten caramel. The scent filled every corner of the house, sweet, spiced, and soft, like the comfort of wool blankets and laughter at the table. The apples collapsed slightly, their texture turning tender but not mushy, the syrup pooling at the bottom of the dish. The Joy of Cooking listed it among quick sweets, meant for nights when time was short, but the craving for kindness lingered. Served warm with cream, whipped topping, or ice cream, it felt indulgent without excess. Each bite carried the warmth of memory, the flavor of home, and the calm of something perfectly ordinary done perfectly well. Stuffed celery stalks were the appetizer side dish hybrid that grandmothers arranged on relish trays, their hollow channels filled with cheese spreads that guests scooped out with satisfying crunches. The preparation took mere minutes. Wash and trim celery into manageable lengths, then pipe or spread softened cream cheese mixed with whatever additions the family preferred. Pimiento cheese was popular, as were versions with blue cheese crumbles, chopped olives, or crispy bacon bits folded into the cream cheese base. Children loved the celery boats filled with peanut butter, while adults preferred more sophisticated combinations with herbs and spices. The stalks could be prepared hours ahead, covered with damp paper towels to prevent drying, then arranged on platters just before guests arrived. Stuffed celery represented the relish tray era when no holiday table was complete without an assortment of pickles, olives, and vegetable preparations that kept appetites occupied while the main meal finished cooking. Bread and milk bowl was perhaps the oldest and simplest supper in the American pantry, dating back centuries and persisting through every economic hardship. Seniors who remembered harder times often returned to this dish when cooking seemed too effortful and appetites had shrunk with age. The preparation required nothing more than tearing bread into pieces, placing them in a bowl, and pouring cold or warm milk over the top. Sugar was sprinkled according to taste, transforming the humble combination into something approaching dessert. Some preferred their bread and milk warm, heating the milk gently before pouring. Others liked it cold, especially during summer months. The bread softened quickly, becoming easy to eat with a spoon, gentle on sensitive stomachs and aging teeth. This was food stripped to its essence. For seniors eating alone, bread and milk represented self-sufficiency and comfort of familiar flavors, asking nothing and giving everything a tired body needed. Eggs a la goldenrod was one of those quietly elegant dishes that proved how far a single egg could go. Hard-boiled eggs were chopped into a creamy white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, seasoned just enough to feel comforting without being heavy. The golden yolks were pressed through a sieve and sprinkled on top like sunshine. It was ladled generously over buttered toast, warm and simple, but it felt refined enough to serve guests. Housewives swore by it for its thrift and speed, 10 minutes from pan to plate. The recipe appeared in early editions of The Joy of Cooking as a way to turn breakfast into something special without fuss or waste. It was food for busy mornings, for children before school, or for quiet dinners when money was tight. Even with such basic ingredients, it had an air of ceremony, a touch of care. The smell of warm milk and butter filled the kitchen like a soft promise. It was a reminder that nourishment could be beautiful when made with love and patience. Cranberry orange relish was the bright, fresh condiment that grandmothers whipped up in their new food processors or old-fashioned meat grinders, while other dishes simmered on the stove. Unlike the jellied cranberry sauce that slid from cans, this relish sparkled with texture and tartness that cut through rich holiday foods like nothing else could. The recipe required just 3 ingredients: fresh cranberries, a whole orange cut into chunks including the peel, and sugar to taste. Everything went through the grinder or processor until coarsely chopped, the orange oils releasing their perfume as they mixed with the berries. The relish needed time for flavors to meld, but the actual preparation took under 5 minutes of active work. Grandmothers made it the night before or early Christmas morning, letting it chill while they focused on the main meal. The vibrant ruby color looked stunning in cut glass dishes that came out only for holidays, proving that the simplest preparations often made the most beautiful presentations. Creamed eggs on toast transformed breakfast ingredients into satisfying supper that cost almost nothing and came together in under 10 minutes. Seniors who survived the Depression understood that eggs were among the most affordable proteins, stretching further when combined with simple white sauce. The preparation began with melting butter in a saucepan, whisking in flour until smooth, then slowly adding milk while stirring until thickened. Hard-boiled eggs, already prepared and waiting in the refrigerator, were chopped and folded into this creamy base with salt and pepper. The mixture was spooned over buttered toast while still warm. The result was rich, filling, and deceptively elegant for something made from such humble ingredients. This dish fed widows and widowers across America during decades when eating alone meant cooking economically but eating well. The eggs provided protein while the toast gave substance, and the sauce made everything feel like someone had taken care. Tomato rarebit was comfort poured over toast. Imagine a smooth, cheese-rich sauce flavored with tomato, butter, and a pinch of mustard. Simple, warm, and filling. It was a cousin to Welsh rarebit, but humbler, faster, and easier to love. The joy of cooking tucked it among its light suppers, promising a full meal made in minutes. It was cooked in one pan, whisked until glossy, then ladled over slices of buttered bread or crackers. The result was creamy and tangy, with a sharpness that cut through the richness of cheese. It fit perfectly into the rhythms of everyday life, something to make after work or to stretch what was left in the icebox. Even when times were tight, this dish brought a touch of luxury to the table. The smell of tomato and melted cheese was like comfort distilled. Every bite carried the warmth of an era when simplicity was both necessity and art. Marinated cucumber salad offered cool, crisp refreshment amid the heavy richness of typical Christmas fare, and grandmothers could prepare it in the time it took to slice vegetables and stir dressing together. Thin sliced cucumbers went into bowls with equally thin onion rings. Then a simple marinade of vinegar, sugar, water, and salt was poured over to cover. Some grandmothers added sour cream for a creamier version, while others preferred the clarity of a simple vinegar dressing that let the cucumber flavor shine. The salad improved as it sat, the cucumbers releasing their liquid while absorbing the sweet tart dressing, though it remained delicious even when assembled just minutes before serving. Dill was the traditional herb addition, its feathery fronds both flavoring the salad and making it look like something from a fancy restaurant. Marinated cucumber salad reminded everyone that not every dish needed to be rich and heavy to earn its place on the holiday table. Cinnamon toast delivered sweetness and warmth in under 5 minutes, becoming the default supper for seniors who craved comfort without complexity. The preparation was almost meditative. Bread was toasted until golden, then spread immediately with soft butter that melted into the warm surface. Sugar and cinnamon, pre-mixed in small jars kept near the stove, were sprinkled generously over the buttered surface. The heat caused the sugar to dissolve slightly, creating a thin, sweet crust that crackled between teeth. Some seniors placed their cinnamon toast under the broiler to caramelize the topping into something approaching candy. The aroma alone lifted spirits on difficult evenings. This was comfort food in its purest form, requiring nothing fancy and delivering everything needed. For widows and widowers eating alone during the 1950s and 60s, cinnamon toast meant dessert and dinner combined into one affordable, satisfying meal that tasted like childhood remembered. Sardine toasts were a pantry miracle that turned the humblest can into something truly satisfying. The joy of cooking listed them among the quick meal ideas for when the cupboard looked bare, but dinner still needed dignity. Sardines were mashed with butter, lemon juice, and a little mustard until smooth, then spread generously over crisp toast or crackers. The flavor was bold and briny, the kind that lingered long after the last bite. In the 1940s and 1950s, this was considered smart cooking, high protein, low cost, and full of character. The scent filled the kitchen instantly, sea and spice together, reminding people that frugality could still taste like indulgence. Sometimes a sprinkle of paprika or parsley was added for color, but nothing fancy was needed. Each toast was a small victory of thrift and taste, a quick meal that felt worldly even when made from a single can. Deviled eggs sat on special plates with oval indentations, their swirled yolk filling piped into perfect rosettes that grandmothers could prepare in the quiet moments before guests arrived. Hard-boiled eggs were halved, their yolks scooped out and mashed with mayonnaise, mustard, a splash of vinegar, and seasonings until smooth and creamy. The mixture was spooned or piped back into the whites, then finished with a sprinkle of paprika that added color and subtle smokiness to each bite. Some grandmothers added pickle relish for tang. Others incorporated a dash of hot sauce for warmth, but all understood that the filling needed to be seasoned assertively to compensate for the bland whites. Deviled eggs disappeared faster than almost any other appetizer on holiday tables, their rich creaminess and portable size making them impossible to resist. The eggs could be prepared hours ahead and refrigerated, though the paprika dusting was always added just before serving. Welsh rarebit in its quick version brought pub-style comfort to kitchen tables, requiring only cheese, milk, and toast to create something surprisingly sophisticated. Seniors who remembered this dish from earlier decades simplified the traditional recipe into something achievable in under 10 minutes. Sharp cheddar was grated and melted slowly in a small saucepan with a splash of milk, dash of Worcestershire sauce, and sometimes pinch of dry mustard. The mixture was stirred until smooth, then spooned generously over toast placed on a plate. The cheese sauce pooled around bread, creating a dish part soup and part sandwich, eaten with knife and fork. The flavors were bold and savory, the texture rich and comforting. For seniors eating alone, Welsh rarebit felt like treating yourself to something special without leaving home or spending much money. This dish transformed ordinary pantry ingredients into something that tasted like care and intention. Celery and olive sandwiches were the quiet, crisp heart of many bridge clubs and ladies' luncheons. Finely chopped celery mixed with sliced green olives and mayonnaise was spread thick between soft white bread, crusts neatly trimmed. The result was light, salty, and refreshing, a bite that crunched softly and vanished fast. They were the definition of elegance in simplicity, the kind of food that appeared without fanfare, but stayed in memory. The joy of cooking tucked this one away under quick sandwiches, proof that you could make something graceful in minutes. Served with tea or lemonade, they were more social ritual than recipe. Their freshness offset heavier dishes, making them a reliable favorite at every gathering. One bite was enough to recall the clink of china and the sound of soft laughter. It was food for conversation, light as air but full of care, the taste of a gentler time. Ambrosia salad appeared at Christmas gatherings in cut glass bowls, its layers of fruit and coconut glistening with sweetness that children considered dessert masquerading as a side dish. Grandmothers assembled it from canned mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, maraschino cherries, miniature marshmallows, and shredded coconut, all folded together with sour cream or whipped topping. The preparation required nothing more than opening cans, draining fruit, and stirring everything together in a large bowl before chilling. Some versions included sliced bananas added just before serving to prevent browning, while others incorporated chopped pecans for crunch. The name ambrosia referenced the food of the gods, and to children of the era, it truly seemed divine, sweet, creamy, and studded with colorful fruit and puffy marshmallows. Grandmothers knew the salad improved after chilling for an hour, allowing the marshmallows to soften slightly and the flavors to meld into creamy harmony. Buttered noodles satisfied hunger with the simplest combination of starch, fat, and salt, asking nothing of the cook beyond boiling water. Seniors living alone during the 1960s and 70s kept boxes of egg noodles in their pantries for evenings when cooking felt like too much, but hunger insisted on attention. The noodles were boiled until tender, drained thoroughly, then returned to the warm pot where butter was added along with generous salt and pepper. The butter melted into warm pasta, coating each strand with glossy richness that tasted more indulgent than ingredients suggested. Some added dried parsley for color or grated cheese when budget allowed. The entire preparation took under 10 minutes and produced a bowl of comfort that filled empty stomachs without taxing limited energy. Buttered noodles were honest food that never pretended to be more than what they were. For seniors eating alone, this simple dish provided warmth on nights when elaborate cooking was impossible. Waldorf salad brought crisp apples, crunchy celery, and toasted walnuts together in a creamy dressing that grandmothers could assemble while the turkey rested. Created at New York's Waldorf Astoria Hotel in the 1890s, this salad became a Christmas staple because it required no cooking and used ingredients that kept well through winter months. Grandmothers diced crisp red apples, sliced tender celery stalks, and roughly chopped walnuts before folding everything into mayonnaise, lightened with a splash of lemon juice. The lemon served double duty, brightening the dressing while preventing the apples from browning. Some families added raisins or grapes for extra sweetness, while others preferred the original simplicity of just 3 main ingredients. The salad could be made hours ahead and refrigerated, though grandmothers knew it tasted best when assembled just before serving, so the apples stayed crisp. Waldorf salad proved that elegance didn't require complexity, just quality ingredients combined with care. Those kitchens went quiet one by one. If you remember the taste, share it. Like and subscribe before it fades for good.